Hello and welcome to the Bridetender podcast. I'm your host, Estee Levin, and I'm here to tend to the brides like I tend to the bar. So mix yourself a cocktail and let's get ready to discuss all things weddings. Today is a long time coming because I'm sitting down with Rev Roxy from Married by Rev Roxy, and we're going to talk about all the things that she is doing, all the things that she's done. I feel like you are a woman that you are just so well-rounded and have done so many things.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for finding the time in your schedule as well.
I want to kind of hear how you got into this business, because I feel like everybody's got a unique story on how they got into weddings. But I'm sure you know, just like me, once you're in, it's like the mafia, you really can't get out.
I know. Well, it all started with the fact that, I went to seminary school to become clergy, which is such an odd thing, I think, for younger, young adults. That's not really on the list of things. Usually it's doctor, lawyer, maybe an athlete, maybe an artist. I mean, as a little girl, I wanted to be an actress. How did I go from that to being clergy is a little odd, but it is in my heritage. My parents came from the Caribbean to the United States so that my dad could continue his studies in seminary school. So it didn't come from completely out of nowhere, but I went to seminary, and long story short, one of the first weddings I ever did was my sister's. Oh. And after I did my sister's wedding, people just started asking me, and I was like, oh, this is a thing. People need people to marry them, and sometimes it's someone that they don't know. That's a thing. Or sometimes not everyone has clergy, right? So some people have their religious identities. But I think in the United States, also we're kind of growing in a direction that even if people have religious identities, they're still I want my wedding day to be this very unique piece of work, this sort of art,
Mm-hmm.
So while their spirituality might be very important to them, they also have visions of doing something really unique and really much kind of more in the direction of production. And so it was a very interesting world for me because my theater background and being clergy kind of came together, and when people just started asking me, it became its own thing.
And now you kind of go all over to do this, which is nice, because I feel like sometimes when you're in the same place all the time, it could get a little stagnant, a little boring. But luckily, getting to travel, that is a huge, in my opinion, huge perk of our world. Just getting to meet other people, see other vendors, see other places, get a little trip out of it. I would enjoy that.
Yeah, totally. Here's a weird thing about me. I actually don't like traveling, but I like getting to the destination. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Once I'm there, I'm woo! I love discovering new foods, new people, new vendor groups. I call it vendor teams. You're on this new team for the day, and you realize you fit in with these people too, and it's just so amazing. And I think that that's one of the things that I love so much, and it really kind of puts in my mind that the world is endless. There's just so many possibilities.
Now, I feel we have to touch on the fact that you have been on TV multiple times, which is such a cool thing. It also, you're an actress by trade, right? So I'm sure that that's super fun. And I think, in today's climate, we have, Love is Blind has become one of the biggest, sensations, right?
Incredible,
and,
yes.
And you got to be on season 1 of that.
Not only season 1, I always say this is my little Guinness World Records thing. I'm I am the first wedding ever shown on the series. I was the officiant for that. And though they said I do not, that was also another ripple effect. So, I mean, to be very honest, I always tell people that show filmed 2 years prior to it actually showing. And what was incredible was that it was the year that COVID was happening. It was the moment.
Oh,
it was
totally.
It feels like God orchestrated this thing. I kid you not. But I remember when I filmed it, I was straight up this is never gonna air. This is horrible.
It was a long time before it was put out.
2 whole years.
I feel really bad for the people on that show who who had to wait all that time, especially the ones who got married, because you were like, you had to hide that you were married for so long.
Kind of, yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. They actually probably didn't have to hide because remember, they're not popular.
True.
No one's checking for them.
That's true.
I think it was a delayed fame, which was probably a unique experience.
Right.
You went 2 years without being famous, knowing that you're going to be on some show that's going to be aired. You don't know how it's going to turn out. And then it comes out and you're like a superstar. And you're like, oh my goodness, we had 2 good years of togetherness where no one even thought we were anybody, you know?
It's
a very unique
experience. You did kind of get
experience.
like your privacy prior, which is actually
Yeah,
really nice.
yeah, and I think I've heard them talk here and there and say that that was really good. Like they really cherished those 2 years where like no one had input on like their relationship or what they thought. You know, 2 years to just kind of work on them and kind of build that foundation. So I was happy for the couples in that sense, but it was so funny that I was like, this is never gonna air. People are not gonna like it, and then it became the total opposite.
Oh, I loved it. I like watched that first season a couple times because I was like ready for season 2.
I watched the first season too, and I said, I can't believe I was a part of this. I had no idea this was all going on in the pods. Like,
Oh my
I had
God.
no idea what I was a part of.
And it's because everything happens so quickly. You go from dating to engaged to like this trip together, which is so intimate, to then living together and getting married all in like a matter of like 4 weeks.
Poor kiddos. I mean, I think when I was a young adult, I think I would have probably thought that, why not? You know, if you're looking for love and you're serious and you just never know how love's going to come to you, you know? I think
That's
we
true.
live in a time where like, you know, I hear so many love stories all the time, and I'm here to tell people like there is no rhyme or reason to it. Like people meet all over in all kinds of situations. I've married couples who've said that they've met at the gas station. I've married couples who said they've met on Tinder, so swipe left, swipe right. Like I've married people in all kinds of scenarios, and very rarely do we really meet like the, you know, we went to high school together and that's like, you know what I mean? Like those still happen, but that's not the only, you can meet someone anyway, anyhow, and there's no telling what's gonna really work out, you know?
I also think with the pandemic, it like sped things up for a lot of people too.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear as many stories of like, oh, well, we've been together for like 10 years and now we're like gonna get married. You had people who were like, they were engaged after 6 months, after a year. I mean, a lot of people know the story, but I got engaged after 3.5 months of dating my husband, which
I beat you 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah, crazy. Listen, here's the thing.
That.
It's the mindset of, and this is, I was always living in that mindset for a while. Like I told you, I worked a lot in nursing homes, right? And I'm telling you, my patients taught me so much about life. And I was like, I need to listen to these people. They're at end of life. Like they know what they're saying, right? We think we have all this time. And I'm not trying to make people feel rushed or that we're dying tomorrow, but we think that we have all this time. And I think what the pandemic did for people is realize like how much we take for granted, how much time we don't have, how much we things could be taken away from us like that. And all of a sudden life is very different. And so, you know, the pandemic really shifted things into perspective, and people were having that baby. They were getting married. They were taking that step because you realize you don't have all the time in the world. And sometimes what we've been putting all of our time into may be just routine things like working every day. And is that really fulfilling us? It really had people thinking about a lot of things and looking inward. And I think in many ways that was like a blessing.
Yeah, I also just think, you know, kind of like to piggyback on that is that you see that like life is so short.
Yeah.
And if something feels right to you, feels good, like why are you gonna like put off something that feels good?
Right.
You know, so I always tell people like when you meet the right person, it doesn't typically take years to figure out if somebody is right. Like you know right away.
Right.
And
Definitely
then
not.
you know it's just a matter of you know
putting in the work. And then that's the second part because I never want to negate that. I don't, you know, I love me a good Disney story, but I never like to give off this whole magical bells like, and then that's it. Lives happily ever after. No, you got to put in the work after that. But you're sifting out to see if the person's worth it, right? You're saying, hey, I'm trying to figure out if you're worth me putting in the work because I know I'm gonna have to put in some work now, but let me just see if, you know, I think that you're worth it.
Well, another side of your business is that you also do premarital counseling.
And I do it with my husband, which is really cool. And I think that
cool.
the couples really appreciate it because it kind of gives them this very balanced feeling of having two counselors essentially, and not feeling like they, feeling like they can get like different perspectives. And I think that they find in the experience that they don't always get what they think they're going to get, in the sense that sometimes my husband sees things crystal clear the way the bride sees it, and I see it the way. So it really doesn't even have to do with gender per se.
Yeah.
It's really more just kind of open to the idea that we have different personalities. And we're coming from our perspective of our personalities and our experiences, and that's what we're bringing into our relationships and trying to form new ones. And so that's kind of the experience we're giving in that.
Well, also, I think it is so important to really talk through a lot of things before you walk down the aisle.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of like what an outcome could be. But if you're afraid of that outcome, then how are you marrying this person? In my opinion.
No, I mean, that's just actually common sense, but not everything's common, right? There's so many, like I always say, not so sexy conversations that you just don't have prior to, and I think that we also need to like look at our culture and be critics for a second. Americans will talk about a wedding all day. We'll talk about what flowers we're gonna get, what photographer we're gonna get, what gown we're gonna get. We'll talk about that all day. We got TV shows about each and every one of those things. But unfortunately, but fortunately, when sometimes people say, I'm so tired of watching the relationship shows, we need them, because we need something that's gonna trigger the conversations about, do you want to have kids? Don't you want to have kids? You feel like you can talk about that later, but like really, no, you need to be talking about that kind of now. Kind of now.
Yeah, about kids, about religion, about like, where do you want to live? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like,
how do you handle
money?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. How do you handle money? And being honest. That's the second part, is being honest and not answering it in ways that your parents want you to answer it, in ways that your partner wants you to answer it, like the way you're feeling right now. And what are your fears? You may have fears that, like, if you present it, you might go down a road where you really are opening up and learning some things that might be helpful more than hurtful, So
I think a lot of people, and I think the stigma has definitely changed over the course of over the course of years, and you see it more widely accepted now than probably ever before, but there is still a little bit of a stigma, is that if you're going to couples counseling, that it's a negative, that it's weak. But the truth is, it's probably the strongest thing that you could do.
Yeah. Okay. So that's very interesting to me. I don't know who put something in the water that made people think this.
Yeah.
But like when you look at let's just take the, Abrahamic religions, being Catholic, being Jewish, being, let's just take all of those. Typically there is some sort of sit down with the clergy member prior to marriage. So it's traditional. Yes. So the fact that people have twisted it now to be this thing like something must be wrong with you. No, it was just like what people did, because it made sense to have a conversation, that was beyond like, what's your favorite movie? You know what I mean? Like, like who you have that conversation with. We have a plethora of resources and abilities to choose who we have that conversation with. We don't have to follow this sort of like strict format, like, okay, well, it has to be your local clergy member. But, it's traditional actually. So when people get strange about it, I'm like, no. People have been doing this for a long time, even if in their hearts of hearts they weren't even that religious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's things like pre-Cana, there's meeting with the rabbi, there's all these things that you're pretty much required to do if you use like a member of like a religious sect. Yeah. So why would it be any different if it was somebody not in a religious sect?
Exactly. So those who, I think people who where that comes from is out of fear. It's just straight up a fear, and so people start being like, yeah, something must be. We're good. Like I've heard a couple. Well, no, we don't really not. We're good. I'm like, what does that mean to be good? Because I want to be good. I've been married for 10 years.
I want to be good.
What's good? Yeah, exactly. And people are like, no, I don't think we need that. We're good. Wow, it's good. I like that.
I feel like my husband and I are always good because I ask every question. I'm just like, but like, what do you feel about that?
Yeah. And sometimes, they're the spouses, they're not naturally expressive. They're just like, I think what I think and I'll get over it or maneuver or whatever their habits are. But like, talking a little bit is good. Expressing a bit is good. And it's, and doing it in a formal environment where it's not just the two of you, sometimes even better, because sometimes you feel like you're hitting a brick wall. Like,
yeah,
I'm saying stuff, you're saying stuff, and then
we're not on the same page.
When are we going to make a decision? Mean? Like, when are we going to whatever, And so it's just nice to have a third party, or in our case, a fourth party who is there, and we're kind of sitting. I always tell people, you ever see at Indian weddings, there's just how their ceremonies are set up.
Yep.
It's like all these chairs, and you're kind of like sitting. I'm like, that picture is what I picture my work is with couples. That feeling of like we're sitting and we're like discussing. Yeah. It's not like I'm telling you and I'm standing and you're sitting. It's like we're sitting and we're talking and we're discussing and we're having like this very important dialogue before a very important decision. And not a permanent decision, but for many permanent, So that's just kind of like the picture I try to give everybody.
And honestly, I mean, I think that there's no harm in sitting down. Yeah.
There's no harm. Like the only thing I guess people might fear is that they hear something that pushes them outside of their comfort zone, that forces them to have to think about or consider. And it's like, that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
And better now than later. Yeah.
That's just life. Think about every day we're really in a way out of our comfort zone one way or another.
Absolutely. And being out of your comfort zone and engaged is much better than being out of your comfort zone and already married. I always try to put people in that mindset.
That's definitely 100%
Yeah, so
true.
many times we look at the wedding day as the Mecca. Like, I just gotta make it to I literally have heard this quote many times. I just gotta make it to the wedding. So if that's you out there, don't say that.
No.
I just gotta make it to the wedding day.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I see so many people who are so stressed leading up to their wedding. And of course, I work in the wedding world too. So I can understand certain aspects, but like then there's others where I'm like, that's what you're stressed about? I'm like, that's like nothing. Like, I'm like,
again, back to the American culture, like we put a huge emphasis on wedding production. I like to be very specific about that. Not the marriage, not the after part, but very huge emphasis on wedding production, which I'm not mad at. I mean, I fit right into that. Like, again, I come with my production background and I can do that. I just always tell people have balance. Have balance. Think about both. You know what I mean?
Because there's so much more past the day too.
Very much. Yeah. Lots of life. The rest of your life.
Yes, and it goes, honestly, it goes faster than you think. I will say, I got married last year, February 2022, wow. and when we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and it was like, how did a whole year go by? Like, it actually is kind of scary because I'm like, no, I'm not ready for like time to be going so quickly.
20 years, 25.
Yeah, my parents are going to be married 39 years this month.
That's a lifetime.
That's a long time. Yeah. And they got engaged after 4 months. So, we love a story like that. We
love it. Look at that. That's so awesome. So awesome to have like just a part of your world.
So I want to ask you, because obviously you're in the wedding world and we always talk about wedding design and things like that. I know that you've been married, you said, for 10 years, but you also did a vow renewal last year, right? Last year,
yes. I did a vow renewal last year, and first of all, I never thought, even after I had my first wedding, that I would ever have a vow renewal, because who plans a wedding twice? Like, it's, to be honest, it's not fun. It's not fun at all. However, I fell so in love with Disney World ever since I had my daughter, because people were like, were you always like this? I'm like, no, I wasn't. I went to Disney World when I was a kid once, and it was a trip that I won. And then I had my daughter and I started, we had decided as parents, like, we're going to do this. We're going to take our daughter every year. We're not going to keep this from her. This is going to be what we do for her. And as we did it, I was the one falling in love with it. Like, my daughter is cool with it, but like if she didn't see Disney for 2 years, she wouldn't even realize. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, she wouldn't be like, where are we going? It's me. Like, I'm a Disney adult, and like, Disney adults are weird. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there now. I'm the mom that, like, if we go into the park and my daughter's like, I don't think I feel well. I'm like, okay, so should your dad take you back to the hotel? I'm like, I'm staying. Or you could just die here in Disney World. That'd be a really great story. You know, like, I just love it. It's just such a magical place. There's no place like it. And it's just the highest level of service when it comes to their theme park.
Definitely.
And so there's so much that I can learn from it, not just the, like, magical experiences, but even looking at it from a business point of view, like, I really study it and I really admire it. So there's so much in it for someone like me that does weddings.
Yeah.
And I truly enjoy it, and I continue to study all the moves that they make and why they make it and just the history of it. And it makes me consider my own business, right? Like, what kind of legacy do I want to leave when I'm gone? Will someone want to pick up Married by Rev Roxy and, like, continue on because it has such a great name and it brings certain types of feelings to people? So I think about all those things that Disney makes me feel, and I just implement it into what I do. So when people ask me, like, I just don't get it. I don't get why you love it so much. I'm like, Disney is Disney. You don't even need to get it. And I was like, and that is exactly what I want for my own business. And so that's kind of the correlation there.
I really love that. That was a really unique way to even, like, put that. And I think that makes so much sense. I wanted to ask you, because you married a couple during the Black Lives Matter movement, and that was so powerful. And so I definitely want to hear your side of that, because I feel like that was such a monumental moment in time. Of course, it happened during the pandemic. We were just dealing with so much. Like, our country, our world was, like,
falling apart. We thought we would have no earth to come back to. Well, you know, because America looks at their country as the only place in the world. But yeah, we're like, the world's over. That's it.
It was a crazy time.
Yeah. So, you know, I really, truly believe in the power of social media. Like, we're just in a new time. I mean, I remember there were the days, I mean, still now people pay millions of dollars for a commercial, but the power of social media can have the exact same effect, you know? And so I just remember it was a year where everyone was canceling weddings, like, left and right.
Yeah.
I mean, this office was birthed out of cancellations. Like, I was like, I need a place, I need a space, I need my own temple. Like, that's how I kind of looked at it. I need to build my own temple with my own hands and my own ideas, a safe space so people can come and just get married. Definitely. It got to the point where I was all about let's just get down into bare bones. Let's throw away all the production thoughts for a second. People still need to get married. Even if this is the end times, let's pretend it is the end times. People still want to take that, they want to have that moment.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And so I really built this space to give people that moment and to still make it nice and to still, you know, have as much magic as I could bring to this tiny little 250 square foot space, if that's even the measurements. And so this couple was supposed to get married at Legacy Castle, huge wedding plan, and we were so excited about it. And then they moved the date. And then they moved the date. She was like, well, I'm getting married this year. I don't care. And moved the date. And then it became like nobody's having venue weddings this year. And then she had to move it to a whole other year. And she was like, I am getting married this year. And she's a doctor. She doesn't have any time for, like, time off. I mean, it's COVID. Yeah. So while everybody else might be home and off, she's not. And so she was like, that's it. I found this hotel that's doing these specials outside in their courtyard. We're gonna go ahead and just do this for now. And it got to the point where a lot of people were devastated. So I got to the point where I was like, listen, I'm not going to charge people more money. You're not getting any money back, but I'm not going to charge you any more money. What I'm going to do for you is include now in my package the ability for you to get married before your wedding day. And now it's a permanent part of my package. If you want to get married before your wedding day, fine. Sometimes it gives us one less thing to do paperwork-wise on your wedding day. Yeah. And I love how that feels timeline-wise. So let's go on ahead and get you married. So, you know, I threw on this outfit. She said she wanted everyone to wear white. I said, okay, I'm still gonna let you have your Bridezilla moments. Like, tell me what to wear. And she had a whole gown and everything. And as you know, Black Lives Matter was huge during this time. You know, what happened was, we had a pandemic and the world was like, okay, now we're gonna talk about a whole bunch of stuff we don't never talk about. Like that's exactly what happened in our country, right? And so this is going on and, everyone's raising their issues. And we were having her walk from her hotel room to the space, which is in the courtyard. And the march was kind of going by. This was all just happening, right? And all of a sudden we were just surrounded by people. I mean, you have this beautiful young Black couple dressed in wedding attire. They're clearly getting married. These people are all marching for Black lives. I mean, it just kind of worked. I kid you not, no one forced anything. It just sort of worked. And I think the part that for me was like so chilling, so like the hairs on the back of your neck raising, is that when I looked out into the crowd had a mixed audience. Like the people marching were people of all different backgrounds. Yeah. And I think for me, that's when it became like this Instagrammable moment. It was like, I don't know what's going on right now. I just stood there and I was like, whoa. And the photographer's husband, who was a videographer but wasn't their videographer, just took his phone out and was like, I gotta capture this. And I remember it was all like settled. We're going to go have the ceremony after that. It just happened. I don't know what was happening or why it was happening. People started cheering and like it was just happening, and then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, you go, girl, and like just kind of like this moment. And we're walking back, and I was like, okay, let's start the ceremony. They got married immediately after that, and people are still like kind of peeking and like, oh yeah, like whatever. It's like we're on the side of the road, literally getting married. And I was like, hey, do you have that video? Like I want to, like we should be posting it. They're like, yeah, like we'll post it later. And I'm like, no, let's post that now. Like, that was wild. Like, why did that just happen? I couldn't explain. There was no explanation, but I just like, people just need to see this, and whatever the comments are, I don't even care. I just feel like we need to share this. There's nothing to really
100%.
Watch right now. There's nothing really to watch right now on social media. Like, I feel like we're kind of like, we were in the house. They were doing all
They were in the house.
They were doing all these reels about being in the house and how we don't want to be in the house.
And all these TikTok dances.
But we're outside, and something just happened outside, and I want to share it with the world. Yeah. And I did, and it became this world-renowned ripple effect. Like, people were calling my phone from Germany, and Vogue was calling, and like outlets that didn't know me, like, but they knew me in that moment. And they were like, we want to talk to this couple. We want to know what was going on, like how, like what, like, I'm like, we can tell you the story, but it's not going to really make any sense. And then all people became really kind of intrigued by the couple and who they are and their story. And it was just this really lovely moment that I feel like the world wanted. And it became sort of like our rainbow after the rain. Like, it meant different things to different people. And instead of trying to control the narrative, I was like, let it mean whatever it means to people, as long as it's something good.
Yeah. And I think, it's so memorable. And at a time when hopefully, like now, I feel like our world is coming back to a little bit more normalcy.
Yeah, normal.
And also just more acceptance too. You know, we're living in a world with some more acceptance, people learning, growing, and I feel like that kind of sparks that. Yeah. That was at a time when that's kind of like, really like the world is turning in a positive way. Right. After so long of disarray.
Right. I think, again, another good thing that came out of the pandemic and just like the spread of like, COVID-19 was that you realize this is happening to humanity.
Yes.
Like, no money could get you out of like not getting COVID. Like,
I feel like during the pandemic, and I don't know if I'm the only one in this, like I almost had a calmness, and it was because this wasn't just happening to me. No. If it was just me, I definitely wouldn't have been calm. Like if I was the only one home and I'm the only one not knowing what's happening with life. but it was everybody felt that one way or another.
In the
If you
world.
were, let's say if you weren't working, you were scared about what's next for you. And if you were working, your life was on the line to work. So everybody was in like a hard place, a hard situation.
Yeah. And if you're a business owner, you're like, am I ever going to get business again? Like, or will business ever look the way that
Especially
it
in
did?
our world, in weddings, because
Oh my
for a long
goodness.
time people couldn't have these lavish parties, and you're like, is this ever going to come back? Is it going to be more than 50 people? Is, are we going to be able to go without a mask? Is everybody going to need to be tested forever before they go into somewhere? I mean, it was pretty crazy.
It was really crazy. And so any way to bring some sunshine, you
Yeah.
know, it was important to do so. And like, I guess that was my motivation really behind posting it. I knew it would be good content in the sense that it was like, oh my God, something's happening. People are outside and gathering and like
And something happy.
something, and something happy, not like, some of the other images. It was very counter the other images that we were being shown in media. So I felt like, that was very memorable, and I was very happy that it kind of happened in the context of like not really famous people.
Yeah.
That was very important for me too, because I've done the TV stuff and that's great. But like, what else do you have to offer the world? Like, and that real serious people will always ask that question. And I want to be taken serious because I do have a serious background. And so that was a moment for me where I was like, now I have another little like strike of fame, but for like not famous stuff. Like, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah,
So,
well, for something that in a way is like a cultural phenomenon that will be remembered forever.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. And people kept saying, journalists who would call me and talk to me, they're like, people are comparing the photo of them with the kind of the people who were protesting behind them and them like kind of raising their hands up as the couple. They were comparing it to the, I guess it was World War II photo of the sailor kissing the girl when he comes.
Oh, yeah.
They were comparing it to that, and I was like, oh my goodness, like everyone knows that photo.
That's
like,
so
even
true.
if you don't even remember why it was happening, like, you know what I mean? Everyone knows that photo, and I'm that's incredible. That's incredible. Like, and so I was like really excited, not just for myself, but like really for them too, because I mean,
it's huge.
they got so much like attention. It wasn't negative. I mean, he's an engineer and she is a doctor, and it was just nice to just see like, wow, like everyday people kind of find themselves in this situation and be able to kind of use it as a platform for all the good that they already were doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, when I saw that for you, I was like, wow. I was like, that is just like huge moment, monumental. It will be remembered forever. And I mean, hopefully we'll never be back in that place of
we're like,
pandemic and all that.
Our people not doing pandemic again. They're just not going to do it. They're
No.
like, I don't care what it is. Just let me die. Let me die.
Seriously, if it happens again, let me die.
Like, I'm good. Like, not wearing a mask. Not I'm not doing it. Find somebody else. Find another planet.
Another planet. I was just gonna say that. So now, I feel like you've done so much. What should everybody be on the lookout for Rev Roxy? What is next? What should be on the lookout?
I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball, to be honest. Every day I wake up, I'm like, what's really on the horizon? Like, I mean, I'm just seeing some natural new things kind of happen in 2023. I have some speaking engagements, which, people have always encouraged me to do speaking engagements, but I'm like, I have a lot of weddings. Like, I just don't, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time with kids and this and that. It's like finding the time. But I'm kind of really enjoying speaking engagements. But it's not so much just like getting up and like speaking at people, but I think just, again, still recovering from COVID, being able to come out and meet people. Like,
Definitely.
even after I speak on stage, I want to meet people, like have that kind of interaction where I get to hear their individual stories, individual questions like that they have for me. Like, I've met people that are like, I've been following you for like 3, 4, 5 years, and I'm meeting you for the first time now, and I've always wanted to ask you about this. And I'm like, Isn't that awesome? Like, you
That
could have
is
just
really
DM'd
cool.
me, but maybe you felt like I might not have responded, which, by the way, I do respond. But, you know, like, it's just really cool to, like, meet people and have that interaction. And then when they do message you or respond to something in your stories, it's a real person behind that page, you know? So I think I'm enjoying that part of speaking. So that's seeming to happen more. I'm sure there's something TV related out there. I don't have anything to share, and I'm also not hiding anything. I just, you know, TV always finds me in some way, shape, or form, and I always welcome it because I think I'm probably one of the few clergy people that will allow it, allow the foolishness. I love it. I welcome the foolishness all the time.
But people like me, we love the foolishness.
I love it.
We're home, we're watching.
YOLO. One life to live, and I'm going to do all the things to include foolishness. So yeah, I'm really excited and I'm open to all of it, and I really hope there's more Florida in my future. Yeah, that I have to lay out there.
I'm gonna catch you in Florida.
Listen,
we're gonna be there. We're moving to Florida.
We're moving to Florida. Everybody just needs
we're
to know.
moving
They
to
just
Florida.
need to know.
Why? Because I don't know why we're doing cold weather. Like I don't know why we're doing this.
I have no
We
clue.
could be living our best life.
Best lives.
With sun every day.
Sun, Mickey Mouse, you know.
It's
all the same
happening.
for me.
It's
Castles.
happening.
Yeah, like that's the life.
Castles, Disney, Florida sun, pools, beaches.
Yeah,
It's
every day.
it's a no-brainer for me. So I will be catching you in Florida.
Oh, we're gonna do it, and then one day we're gonna look back and laugh and be like, remember when we lived in New York?
Literally, though, gonna be like, what the hell were we doing?
No, I don't know. We grew up here. We don't know any better.
We don't know.
But we're ready to break away. We're coming out of
We're coming out of our shell.
We're coming out of the Matrix. No, there's a Matrix going on. When you tell New Yorkers you want to leave, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
But then when you meet New Yorkers who moved elsewhere, they're like, yeah, I would never move back. I'm like,
Never.
So I was just like, so it's time.
I threaten my friends all the time. I'm like, I'm not coming back. If I leave, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. Even if I come back for a wedding, I'm staying in a hotel. I'm not even staying at any of you guys' houses. I'm leaving immediately after. Like, I'm done. Yeah.
Back on that plane.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, one, I'm so excited that you came on today.
Yeah,
because
me too.
I just couldn't wait to, meet you in person with so many people that we knew in common. I was like, I have to meet you. And two, I want you to tell everybody where they can go follow you, where they can look up so that when they're getting married or if they, are in the wedding industry and they need somebody for, officiating, marriage counseling, anything like that, where they can find you.
Well, I always say going to my website, www.marriedbyRevRoxy.com is always great because pricing and all that kind of stuff, like just looking at things from a consumer point of view is all on our website. Like you can go there, you can navigate, you can look around, you can read my blog. It's all on my website. But I live on Instagram and I'm starting to build a little hut on YouTube.
Ooh.
So you can find me either place. Definitely Instagram. I daily post on there. I'm literally always walking you through my life. But Instagram at Married by Rev Roxy. Everything's Married by Rev Roxy tagged. So find me on all platforms, but I live on Instagram and I'm trying to build up on YouTube little by little.
Well, everybody, go follow Rev Roxy at Married by Rev Roxy and go follow her YouTube at Married by Rev Roxy because, we like to build that business up on here, That's what we do. We have to promote people. Yeah. We shout them out. We pimp them out. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode of the Bridetender podcast. You can follow along on every streaming platform, but of course I want you to check out the video with Rev Roxy, see her in person, how stunning and beautiful she is.
Thank you.
And if you're not already following me on Instagram, please go follow me at the Bridetender for all fun facts on the wedding industry, ways to save money on your special day, and of course hiring the best in the business for your wedding. Also go follow Rev Roxy at Married by Rev Roxy. And until next week, mix yourself a cocktail, slide into my DMs with questions you want answered on all things weddings. Stay sane, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.